I flew halfway across the world to meet my online girlfriend after a year of daily chats, but she panicked and left me alone most of the trip. After a year of daily phone chats, I took a plane overseas to see my internet girlfriend. However, she suffered from panic episodes when we first met, forcing me to spend hours every day by myself in my hotel, until I was forced to leave. Since I honestly don't know what to think anymore, I, 29 male, need to get this off my chest. For backstory, I met this girl, 29 female, a few years ago in a Discord server where we both played a game thanks to some online pals. We immediately clicked since we had similar hobbies and senses of humor, and I was astonished by her professional ambition. She is quite passionate about her work, which is tech-related, I don't want to be too specific, and she is constantly discussing projects and other relevant topics. We increased the frequency of our conversations, and eventually we were chatting for hours every day. We occasionally had phone chats with other people, but once everyone else left, we would continue to talk until around 3 in the morning. To be honest, it didn't feel like the previous internet connections I had. One evening, when discussing films we enjoyed, we discovered that our tastes were nearly the same. We began using one of those sync services to watch content together. When she informed me she had feelings for me early last year, everything changed. She kind of blurted it out when we were on a video conversation, saying she had been feeling that way for some time but was afraid to speak because of the distance. We had been flirting a little, so I wasn't entirely shocked when I informed her that I was also intrigued. Our internet time together increased even further. Sometimes she would even hold her phone up so we could communicate digitally while she was cooking or doing anything else. Before deeming us official, I ought to have been more explicit about what I required, but I was in the heat of the moment. Even through a screen, there seemed to be a very unique vibe between us that is difficult to describe. To be honest, I hadn't connected with someone like that in a long time. Where I live, I've had a very blank dating life. It wasn't long before she began calling me her boyfriend in conversations with others close to her. She would tell me stories about how her mother would inquire about me, or how she would bring me up to her coworkers. Examples such as, "My boyfriend said the funniest thing today," or, "My boyfriend and I are going to see this movie this weekend." These statements were flattering, but I always believed that we needed to meet in person before formally committing to a relationship. However, it was definitely a mistake on my part that I never really corrected her. I suppose I assumed we would meet soon enough, and didn't want to offend her. We discussed getting together several times. She takes medication for a chronic health condition, and has rather severe anxiety difficulties. Although it makes traveling difficult, it doesn't truly affect her day-to-day existence. We decided that seeing her in Canada would be more sensible for me than having her visit the United States. Additionally, it's not exactly stress-free to cross the border with all the political outcries going on right now. I won't get into politics here, but it's true that crossing borders is more difficult these days. I made the bold decision to plan a trip to see her around Christmas. Flights and a hotel cost far more than I should have, but I thought it would be worth it. Due to the short notice, the flights alone cost over $700, and the accommodation for 3 nights cost an additional $600. To be honest, I could hardly afford it. However, I had been saving for some time and felt that this was crucial. After all this time of communicating, I was rather eager to finally see her in person. In the days before the trip, we discussed it virtually daily. She also appeared excited, however she admitted to being anxious about her nervousness getting the better of her. When we first met, she informed me she had been discussing anxiety management techniques with her therapist. That gave me hope that she was making preparations to ensure the visit would be successful. She even compiled a list of the locations in her city that she wished to show me. I had every reason to believe she was as excited about this as I was, as we discussed visiting a museum she loves, and a few places she thought I might enjoy. I just got back from that trip this past weekend, and I'm still getting used to it. Actually, I've spent the majority of my frigging time here in my hotel room, where I'm composing this. I flew all this way to see the city, but I have hardly seen it yet. The trip got off to a rough start. After landing, I took a 40-minute Uber to my hotel, which cost about $60 because, of course, everything in this place is pricey. I was anxious as well. I've only visited Canada a few times. I've never been to this city, and I was going to meet someone I'd only ever seen on a screen. The entire Uber ride made me feel nauseous. She was replying to my constant texts with updates on my whereabouts, but they came out as hurried and tense. Since I was also anxious, I assumed she must be experiencing even more worry, so I made an effort to be understanding. I assumed she would be prepared to meet when I arrived at the hotel. She lives about 5 minutes away from my lodging. Even though that hotel was more expensive than others, that was one of the reasons I chose it. She had said that staying nearby would make things easier for her. I messaged her to let her know I was ready anytime she was, checked in, and showered a little. I waited after that. She texted me instead of coming over, stating she needed more time since her anxiety was so bad. I made an effort to be sympathetic. I was aware of the seriousness of her concern. However, it took her an additional 2 hours to summon the bravery to visit me. I was sitting in my hotel room, checking the window every now and again, wondering if this whole trip had been a mistake. I attempted to watch TV, but I was unable to concentrate. At one point, my flight had been so early that I nearly fell asleep. She was actually trembling and crying, like sobbing, when she eventually arrived. It felt weird at first when I went down to the lobby to meet her. I sensed her trembling as we hugged. The fact that everyone in the foyer was staring at us added to the unease. She nodded when I proposed that we head up to my room so she could relax in peace. She sobbed for about 10 minutes straight while sitting on the edge of the bed in my room. Other than sitting next to her and giving her the occasional pat back, I had no idea what to do. She nodded when I asked if she wanted any water, so I retrieved some from the bathroom sink. She apologized perhaps 20 times after appearing to cool down a little. She insisted that she had been all right until she really had to come meet me, and that she had no idea why she was feeling so nervous. After a while she appeared to be well enough for us to speak. At first it was awkward, not at all like our casual online chats. But after a half hour or so, she proposed that we visit her. There, she claimed, I would be able to meet her brother, and she would feel more at ease. She and her brother reside in a modest home approximately 5 minutes' drive from my hotel. Her brother appeared to be a cool, amiable, gaming kind of guy. They also have a very adorable black cat who insisted on attempting to sit on my lap. As I had anticipated from our video talks, their apartment was tidy, yet lived in. Even though we spent some time hanging out at their apartment, she remained really nervous the entire time. Sometimes she would get silent, and I would catch her staring at nothing, as if she were deep in meditation. Her brother made an effort to assist by carrying on the discussion, and inquiring about my flight, job, and other matters. Although it was kind of him, I became aware that I was speaking to him more than to her. She stated she was too anxious to drive, but she did say she wanted to take me around and show me parts of the city. She stated she was feeling too overwhelmed, and that perhaps tomorrow would be a better time. But I did suggest that perhaps we should all go, with her brother driving. She simply phoned me by Uber to return to my hotel at the end. Total time spent together on the first day, no more than 3 or 4 hours. She spent the majority of that time there with her brother as well. Around 9 o'clock, I returned to my hotel room and just collapsed. I was worn out after the day's emotional roller coaster and the journey. In addition, I had been awake since around 4 a.m. for my journey. She replied, "Sleep well. Sorry today was rough. Tomorrow will be better, I promise." I tried to concentrate on that promise as I drifted off to sleep after sending her a good night text. I got up really early the following day. I don't know, jet lag or whatever. I had nothing to do at around 7 in the morning. She normally sleeps in because she works nights, but I was just waiting to hear from her while I sat in my hotel. Despite my hunger, I didn't want to go too far for fear of receiving a message from her. In the end, I ate a terrible and expensive breakfast at the hotel restaurant. I just waited and waited after that. I took a shower, watched TV, browsed social media, and made a quick call to my mother. She eventually messages me 4 hours later to let me know that she's awake but not quite ready to see me, because she's still feeling nervous. She said that she simply needed some time when I asked if there was anything I could do to help. I thought there might be less pressure if we met in a public place rather than her coming to the hotel. "Maybe," she responded, "but I'm not sure yet." Said she would notify me shortly. I tried not to show my frustration at this point, but I was becoming rather annoyed. In order to have something to do, I decided to pick up some items from the drugstore that was within walking distance. I bought some Tylenol because I was about to have a headache, some food, and a portable toothbrush because I had forgotten mine. I was mostly simply passing the time. I discovered a small lunch area close by after spending far more time than was required exploring the pharmacy. Perhaps bringing her something to eat would be a kind gesture, so I thought I could get lunch for the two of us. After getting sandwiches for the two of us, I returned to the hotel to leave my belongings before visiting her. I messaged her to let her know that I had gone to get lunch and to ask if I could come over right now. After 15 minutes or so, she responded, "Sure, I could come over." I took the food to her apartment after calling an Uber. We were about halfway through day 2 when I eventually arrived at her apartment, which was approximately 2 hours later, and she hadn't even eaten the food I had brought. She thanked me for thinking of her, but claimed she wasn't hungry. I made an effort to hide my dismay. At least it wasn't wasted because her brother took the second sandwich. We spent some time sitting in their living room chit-chatting. She appeared slightly less nervous than she had been the day before, but not entirely at ease. She tells me that she, her brother and I, are going to a get-together with a number of their friends, just as I was beginning to believe that perhaps we could actually do something together. I came all this way to spend time with her, so I was a little taken aback, but I reasoned that maybe having other people there might make her feel more at ease. She replied that we would only be there for a few hours when I questioned how long. She replied that it was at her friend's house, which is a bit outside of the city, when I inquired where it was. I was disappointed, even though I attempted to appear excited about it. I had not anticipated our first actual day together looking like this. The drive there took roughly an hour in the end. I sat in the rear and she sat in the passenger seat while her brother drove. For most of the ride they discussed people I didn't know and inside jokes that I wasn't involved in. She would sometimes attempt to explain things to me, but it was never the same. I primarily just took in the vista outside the window, which was rather pleasant. There were about 10 people at her friend's house when we arrived. In fact, all of her friends were incredibly kind and hospitable. They were all aware of me. She had apparently been discussing this visit for weeks. She introduced me to everyone as her boyfriend, and it felt perfectly acceptable. It was a good celebration. Good food, a few beverages, and people playing board and video games. Everyone was polite and constantly approached me to chat. After hearing so much about me, a number of individuals expressed their happiness at finally meeting me. According to one female, "She never shuts up about you." Which, considering how little time we'd really spent together since I came, was both flattering and perplexing. Although we didn't really converse much, we stayed there for the majority of the night. She was off playing games with someone else or dragging me into discussions with her pals all the time. It was strange. We were usually in different areas of the room, despite my repeated attempts to stand close to her or get her attention. At 10 o'clock at night, we finally began to return. Given that she typically stays up until 3 or 4 in the morning, I assumed we would still have plenty of time to spend together. Perhaps we could just sit and chat like we used to do online, or we could watch one of those movies we were always discussing. She then asks her brother in the car if she can drive me to my hotel before they leave for home. According to her brother, "Sure." I'm sitting there in disbelief. She just met her boyfriend in person, who went across the country to see her, but she's too exhausted to spend any real time with him. When she glanced back at me for confirmation, I said, "Sure, that's fine," because I had no idea what else to say. Most of the drive back to my motel was quiet. She mentioned her anxiousness had been playing up more than usual lately, and once apologized for being so strange. It wasn't actually okay, but I told her it was. Could I say anything else? I couldn't really make her want to hang out with me. She said goodbye with a short hug and promised to text me in the morning when we arrived at my hotel. I felt completely whack when I went up to my room. After another few hours of hardly communicating on day 2, I began to believe that this entire vacation had been a huge mistake. Thus I find myself back in the hotel room, completely bewildered and alone. Even though my girlfriend is only a few minutes away, I'm alone in a strange country, and haven't really spent any time with her alone. I attempted to watch a movie on my laptop but was unable to concentrate. I ended up aimlessly browsing social media until around 1 in the morning. I was concerned that texting her about it might exacerbate her worry, so I refrained from doing so. However, I was also at a loss about what to do. I felt like I had met everyone in her life except for my real girlfriend by the time I was scheduled to have dinner with her family the following evening. I eventually texted her to let her know how I was feeling. I tried to be straightforward but gentle. I acknowledged that worry was difficult, but I was disappointed that we hadn't been able to spend more time together. I brought up the fact that I had come all this way to visit her, and that it bothered me that she seemed more at ease with me in public than with me alone. I made it clear that I was merely perplexed and a little depressed about the circumstance, not angry with her. When she finally reacted, it was a wall of text and took over 20 minutes. She apologized profusely, stating that she wanted to make the trip worthwhile for me, but was simply too exhausted, and that her anxiety was still through the sky. She made an effort to reassure me that she still had a strong interest in me, but she claimed that she is too anxious, and that nothing would happen if we were by ourselves. It seems that this is difficult for her because she hasn't been in a relationship for a few years. She clarified that when there are other people present, she feels more at ease since she is not under as much pressure to be fascinating or amusing. Claimed that she is constantly concerned that I am evaluating her, or contrasting her with her online persona. She added that she fears physical contact after a long period of time, and worries that I have unrealistic expectations for her. I informed her that there are several steps between an embrace and anything more serious, and that I wasn't anticipating anything intimate or physical. In fact, I haven't even given her a hug this trip. I simply wanted to talk to you and hang out with you like we do online for some real quality time. I told her that I wasn't traveling this far for sex. I finally got to meet the person I've been corresponding with for months. That appeared to relieve her, and she said that after meeting her mother, we would spend some time together. She mentioned that her mother was very excited to see me and that perhaps we could return to my hotel to watch a movie or something after supper. I accepted the plan since it seemed better than nothing. That night I couldn't sleep. I continued to reflect on the entire circumstance and question whether I had made a grave error in interacting with someone who suffered from such extreme anxiety. That seems harsh, and I don't blame her for having mental health problems. That's not her fault. But I began to question if I could handle the difficulties of a long-distance relationship. My last day here is today. Tomorrow morning I will depart early. This entire trip has seemed like a huge waste of both money and effort. Instead of spending most of my visit sitting by myself in a hotel room, I wanted to spend time with her. Since we don't have much time together, I genuinely assumed she would want to spend every moment with me. We've been discussing this vacation for a while, so I thought it would be rather different. After this, I'm not sure if this relationship can last. Am I going overboard? I understand that anxiety does exist, yet it seems pointless that I've come this far. Update. Several days have passed since my return, and because many people have been inquiring about what transpired, I thought I should provide an update. In the comments, several of you were really critical. Yes, I am aware that anxiety is a real illness. I am not a sex-crazed guy who was merely attempting to hook up. Furthermore, I don't believe she was taking advantage of me or anything similar. You folks come up with some crazy hypotheses. For those who are wondering why I didn't just go explore the city by myself, the answer is that I did some exploring, but it wasn't the main goal. I wasn't a tourist who traveled so far. To spend time with her, I went. In any case, I made the initial post on the last day of the trip after waking up quite early. After that, I anxiously awaited her message. Once more I didn't hear from her for a few hours. When she did text, it was a bit after noon. I had been up since about 8 o'clock, so I spent an additional 4 hours sitting in my hotel room, checking my phone like a teen in love every few minutes. She said I could take an Uber to her apartment at any time, and reminded me that we had supper with her mother later that day. Many of you advised me to simply call off the dinner plans, but I chose to go ahead and see how things worked out. I mean, I might as well meet her mother since I'd already traveled this far. I quickly showered, changed into my clothes, and went to her house. After the previous days, I was a little nervous, but I tried to remain optimistic. It was a pleasant difference that her brother was out when I arrived. Although she still appeared a little anxious, she was unquestionably less anxious than before. In fact, we watched things together for a while. We sat side by side on her couch after she recommended the show she had been eager to see with me. We sat close and it felt more like the quality time I had been hoping for, because she looked to be having a better day in terms of anxiety. It was pleasant that she even leaned slightly against me. We didn't actually engage in any physical activity. After some time, her brother returned home, although it was unquestionably better than the days before. She told me more about her friend's remarks about us at the party, and we discussed some of them. It sounded more like our internet chats. We began preparing to go have dinner with her mother at around 5 o'clock. This caused me some anxiety. It's usually a huge deal to meet the parents, and I wasn't sure what to anticipate considering how the journey had gone so far. I could sense that she was agitated once more as she drove us to the restaurant. I made an effort to divert her attention by keeping the conversation light. It was a charming, tiny Italian restaurant. When we got there, her mother was already there. As soon as she noticed us, she got up and hugged her daughter before turning to grin warmly at me. They have the same eyes, so I could tell right away where my girlfriend acquired her appearance. Her mother's dinner went unexpectedly well. Her mother was approachable and inquired about my work and family without being overbearing. Her mother looked sincere in her excitement about me and her daughter being together, and we clicked immediately. My partner appeared more at ease throughout dinner than I had observed throughout the entire trip. She was grinning, contributing to the discussion, and even putting her hand on my arm to emphasize a point. When we left, her mother hugged me, which was wonderful, and said I could come over at any moment. Even though I wasn't sure whether there would be another time at that moment, it felt good. We returned to her apartment after dinner. Although her brother was present, it felt more private because he tended to stay in his room. It was much the same as before. Hanging out, talking, and watching things. It felt more one-on-one than before, yet it wasn't quite alone time. Was this trip's final day what I had anticipated? Not at all. However, it was unquestionably superior to the initial days. She offered to drive me back herself, which surprised me because I was half expecting her to call me an Uber again as the evening wore on. It seemed like a minor triumph. We discussed the trip on the way back. I made an effort to be understanding when she apologized once more for the way things had gone. She acknowledged that I wished we had more time, like today, and suggested that since the first meeting was over, perhaps next time would be simpler. She accompanied me to my room when we arrived at my hotel. She assisted me in making sure I hadn't left anything in the bathroom or drawers when I was packing for the early departure. Despite its simplicity, it had an intimate feel that most of the tour had not. We kissed goodbye as she was ready to go. Just a good kiss goodbye. Nothing fancy. No makeout. It was short but sweet, and it got me thinking about what the journey may have been like if we had arrived at that moment sooner. After she went, we exchanged a few texts. She stated she wished we'd spent more time together, and I was getting ready for bed because my flight was so early. She said that although she had purchased a frame for a photograph of us, she had come to the realization that we hadn't really taken any quality group photos. The handful we had from the weekend didn't really fit her needs because they were primarily group photos from the party. That really disappointed me, so I suggested that perhaps I should simply take an Uber back, so I could get a decent photo. After 10 minutes or so without hearing back, I assumed she had either fallen asleep or became distracted. Then she texted me out of the blue to tell me to come downstairs. She explained that she had driven all the way back to the hotel, anxiety be damned, she said, just to take a picture and kiss me goodbye. At first I didn't understand. She was indeed in the lobby as I rushed downstairs. In addition to taking selfies, we also asked the night cashier to take a few group photos. Then we kissed again, more deeply this time. She gave me a tight hug, and said in a whisper that she was happy I came, but that the weekend wasn't what we had expected. Of the entire visit, that particular moment at the conclusion felt the most genuine and connected. I got up really early the following morning in preparation for my journey. Shortly after returning home, she must have texted me to wish me a safe journey. The return trip went well, giving us plenty of time to reflect about what had transpired, and what it meant for us moving forward. Overall, I'm going to maintain my optimism, even though it wasn't the ideal weekend I had hoped for. I believe that the decision to shorten the vacation was probably a mistake. Given her anxiety problems, 3 days isn't really enough time to get to know someone. Perhaps the last several days could have resembled that last night more if we had had a week. Since I returned, we've texted daily, and it's been nice to get back to our casual discussions. I've tried to be encouraging without being pushy, and she's been more forthcoming about her anxiety and the things that make it worse. In their upcoming appointments, she stated that her therapist wants to focus exclusively on her relationship anxiety, which seems like a good start. When she has to choose whether or not to travel down here for an event that is taking place sometime this summer, we'll see how things work out. I believe that will be the true test. I'm going to have to reevaluate if this can work in the long run, if she can't bring herself to come see me. However, there may be hope for us if she manages to make the trip, and things turn out better than they did this time. To address a few points raised in the comments, she does take medication and see a therapist, albeit a very new one. She has struggled with anxiety for many years, and it won't go away on its own. I wouldn't often be interested in a long-distance relationship, but our personalities and hobbies complement each other in ways that I don't often find with others in my area. And to everyone who thinks I'm being foolish or naive, well, maybe I am. I think that people should be given second chances, particularly when it comes to mental health. She wasn't attempting to ruin the weekend, really. She was obviously dealing with a serious and challenging issue. Whether we can discover a path forward that benefits us both is the question. I appreciate all of the feedback and suggestions on the first post. The next trip is in approximately 2 to 4 months, so I'm not sure whether I'll update again, but then I'll know for sure whether this can work or not.